Okay, so this is the 10 o'clock SAT writing class, and we're going to go over the spot the error questions, starting with number 20, and work our way up, and then we'll go over any questions that are remaining on our data analysis that need to be reviewed. So the first question is going to be led by Jenny. You can give us the answer and an explanation why. Okay, so which is the correct answer? Okay, A. All right. Tell us who is the they? What is they referring to? We call this an ambiguous pronoun. And is it about, like, who's they referring to, this ambiguous pronoun? What, it doesn't say, right? So what are some possibilities? That's how we'll know if it's the error. Yeah, children don't present a clash, but what does present a clash? And a lesson. Okay, this is about books, so who are the people that write books? Yes. So a possibility is the authors present a clash of good and evil. And what's another possibility for 20's they? Because things can present ideas as well. What's the thing that is plural in the sentence? The books. Okay. So either of those are possibilities, and the sentence doesn't specify. So that is why A is the error. Let's go with 21, Darina. Why? And what does the verb to have in the past tense combine with to make this sentence work? What's the verb after had? Right here, this, right? To swear, right? Yeah. To swear. Now, when you combine to have with to swear, it has to be with an N, sworn. Had sworn. Another example of this past perfect tense would be had eaten, right? We don't say had ate. And you can say had ridden, right? You don't say had rided or had rode. It has to be with the N. Not always does the past perfect have an N, but in many cases it does. And for swear, it must have an N when combined. 22, go with Alice. And so the key word to look for in these questions is words like than. What does than force the reader to do when he or she reads it? What kind of action or thinking, what kind of analysis are you making when you have the word than? Yes, this is the same person, Alice. Are you making a list? What are you doing with those? You're making a comparison, okay? Whenever you have the word than, there must be a logical comparison. You can only compare similar objects or subjects. And in this case, we have Mark's skill compared to what, Alice? His interview. We're comparing a person with a thing, and that is illogical. We want logical when they are the same subject or object. So what can we do to D to make it a logical comparison? And Mark Skills actually isn't a person. It's a thing. It's a skill. We're comparing skill to interview, which still is not the same category, right? We want Mark's skill that he actually has and compare it to what in the interview? The skills in his interview. That would be logical. So when you take this test for the first time, it's easy to overlook it because we don't think specifically, then, okay, you got to make a comparison, got to be the similar category, has to be logical. No, you just think, let's compare two things. Who cares, right? And you have to step out of that and become a writer when you take this test. Number 23. 23 will be read by Claire. Okay. And why? This is similar to 22. There is a comparison without the word than. What are two histories that are being compared? Yes, science and religion. So if you're going to make a sentence that compares science and religion, it is difficult to appreciate one without a consideration of, how do you indicate the one that you're not talking about? The others. Another tells us that there's additional subjects that you're referring to, and we just want the other one, not another one. 24. Brian. And why? Good. Can you explain to us what is parallelism? Yes. So is it just one ing that you look at in parallelism? Good. You're saying that parallelism is a list of three or more verbs. I'm going to add to that phrases or objects that, how do they appear in the sentence? A list that appears, you said ing, what should this have here? Cooking. So they have to appear similar, right? In form. It's easy to answer these questions once you know what to look for. And what Brian did was he looked for parallelism when he read the question. And that'll get you the right answer. 25, Michelle.
Still to be resolved negotiations for the state of workers' pension plans and the degree to which the company would contribute to health care. No error.
Yes. And why would a lot of students chose B? Because they wanted to say was. What is the subject in number 25?
Negotiation.
That's the subject. Normally, the subject comes before the verb, but this question is one of those is an advanced form of putting the subject after the verb. So the subject is the state of the workers' pension plans and the degree to which the company would contribute healthcare. All of that is the subject, which is singular or plural, Michelle? Plural. We have two subjects. Therefore, we have to make the verb plural. So those who chose B were incorrect because it works with this sentence. 26. Braylon. And why? Anytime you see the word being, 9 times out of 10, it'll be an error. In this case, choose it because it's an error. Being creates an ambiguity between the verb and object. Like we can say being is to be, right? We can say to be, being is like an existence. Or we can say that it is like the nature of a person, right? You could say Mr. Lim is being helpful, right? Or you can say elite brought many college admissions into being. Or you can say one aspect of our being has been developed at the expense of others. So this word being will almost always be the error, whether it's spot the error or sentence revisions or paragraph revisions. Always look for that, and you'll have a higher probability of getting the correct answer. So I'll read to you what the answer key says for 26. It says, the modifier in this sentence starts with the present participial verb phrase being absent, which suggests that the action in the modifier and the action in the main clause are simultaneous. It is not logical, however, for these actions to be simultaneous. It suggests that the action in the modifier occurred first, change being absent to a non-finite perfect verb phrase having been absent, or begin the sentence with after. So instead of this, we could have fixed it by saying after being absent. I still don't like the being there. Or you could have said having been absent. So those are other explanations for your answer. Let's go with 27, Aaron. Okay. And what'd you come up with? Most people chose no error because they didn't know what to look for. Was your team able to find what to look for? Aaron? Yes. Yes. So our student just said that as well as and both are repetitive. I'm going to take it a step further and have you memorize that this coordinating conjunction, which combines two or more objects, has to be in this format every time. You have to say both blank and blank. You cannot say both blank as well as blank. It'll never work because the rule is for this coordinating conjunction is you say both X and Y. You're not going to say both X as well as Y. Okay. Okay. That will not be acceptable. And you have to look for it. If you don't see the repetition, then Make sure you remember that, as well as will not work. I want you to skip to your section 10 and look at number 14, because something similar happened. Number 14 gives us another coordinating conjunction. I think my 14 got cut off. Let's go to 11:30. Okay, so number 14 says, as an art collector, Eileen preferred paintings over photographs. Now, when you have the word preferred, you must always have two. Over is a incorrect form of this complement structure. That's what this one's called. A complement structure. So we would have to say for number 14, Eileen preferred paintings to photographs. Preferred X to Y, and that means E is our correct answer, right? Because of that 2. Preferred X to Y, not over. Next is Priscilla. You can give us 28. Okay. And Y. What should we look for to see the error? This is just like the example about the children's books. It's an ambiguous pronoun. What are some possibilities for this error? I mean, what is the subject? The task force. And is that singular or plural? Singular. Anything with the word the is singular. And what is they? Plural. Once we know what to look for, we can spot the error. 29 is Bonnie. And Y. So this is not easy to see because of this concept called the past perfect. Now there's many exceptions to this rule, and I don't know if we'll have enough time to cover all the exceptions. This rule tells us that the verb to have plus to oust, right? We have this combination in the past tense must be completed before the modifier. Modifier just means a phrase that will modify the main clause or the subject. Okay? So it's just a phrase. So the modifier here is by the time the flattering story about the country's president, right? You have to say that the coup had completed the action by saying had ousted. So I'm going to type this and make it clear that had has to be in the sentence. So, and I'm going to have you write a few practice sentences for yourself. But by the time the flattering story about the country's president ran in the magazine, a coup had ousted him from power, rendering the story obsolete. Okay. This had tells us that it is a completed action before the time the flattering story came out. Right? And you're gonna practice this. Okay. I'm gonna give you 3 practice sentences of using this past perfect tense using the time that's completed before it is happening. So let's say by the time class was over, students had learned the concept of the past perfect. Okay. Notice that I had to use this before the class was over. Okay. So we're going to use a student example. We can say by the time the parents arrived to pick up, let's say by the time the parent arrived to pick up Bonnie, and let's say Parth. Where's Parth? Okay. He had, and then you fill in the blank. Okay. I'm gonna give you another practice one. Let's say by sunset at San Dimas High School, Katie had, right? And then you finish that phrase. And one more, let's say before the pharmacist physician, before the surgeon arrived, before the surgeon completed the procedure, Zion had, okay, right, something's going to be completed before the time indicated. Go ahead and I want you to write these sentences in your test and practice this 3 times. And I'm going to call on you to share with your classmate. Here are some student examples, and it won't always have the words by or before. They might have the keywords like until or the keyword since. And once you see those, you must use the past perfect had plus the verb that ends either in N or ED. You just have to know, you have to be aware of that. Okay? So that will be 29.